When picking aftermarket speakers for a car audio system, sometimes there are separate woofer and tweeter locations and you need a set of components. Other times there is only one location available, so you need to combine the tweeter with the woofer in a coaxial configuration. Now usually these two different applications would require two different speaker sets. But what if you could purchase a speaker system that not only could be used as a component system when needed, but could easily be converted to a coaxial speaker as well? This is the JL Audio C3 convertible component or coaxial speaker line. Now why would we want this convertible option? What comes in the box and what are all the details on these? Hey everyone, I'm Mark. Welcome to CarAudioFabrication. Here on this channel, together we learn how to master car audio and how to design, build, and install our dream car audio system. A big thanks to JL Audio for sponsoring this video so that we can take a closer look at this speaker series. Let's dive in. So first off, why convertible? Why is it advantageous to be able to convert these speakers from a component style design with a separate woofer and tweeter to a coaxial style design where the tweeter is mounted inside the woofer? Well, first off, I talk about this quite often on the channel, but I like to look at car audio gear as an investment. Buy really good gear up front and you'll be able to enjoy it for years to come because it's going to be reliable, but there's also no reason that you can't use the same equipment in multiple different vehicles. In one vehicle, you may have a location for a tweeter up in the front of the vehicle that makes it easy to install that tweeter in that location with a separate woofer in the door, and in another vehicle that might simply not be an option and you want to mount the tweeter in the woofer. Well, with the C3 kit, being able to do so and swap easily is super easy. Another advantage is simply the fact that you can match these from front to rear. You may have a vehicle that does have a location for a woofer and a component tweeter, but in the back it might not have that component tweeter. That's pretty common in vehicles. You might only have a woofer door location or like a rear package tray, that sort of thing. With this C3 lineup here, you can match speakers from front to back by having that easily convertible option. Now, speaking of flexibility, in the C3 lineup, you have many different sizes of driver available. First, you have a 6.5-inch woofer, which is a very common size. You have a 6-inch woofer. You also have a 5.25-inch woofer, which I don't have on hand right now, but you guys can see on screen. You have a 5x7 oval-shaped woofer, and then for rounding everything out, you've of course got the 1-inch silk dome tweeter. An important side note here, all woofers are available individually, and you can also purchase the tweeters themselves as a pair. Also, in case you're wondering, a very solid three-way setup if you're running active is to go with one of the C3 woofers along with the C3 tweeter, but pair it with either the 2.75 or 3.5-inch mid-range from the custom fit line. Now let's see what's in the box. Now, although there are several different size options available in the C3 lineup, in this video we're going to be focused on the C3-650 kit. This is the most common kit that includes a 6.5-inch woofer and the 1-inch tweeter. First off, they've included a template that we can use to create the cutout hole size if needed. This is perforated. And this also allows us to locate the mounting holes. Also included is an owner's manual, and then under this piece of packaging material is all of the different tweeter mounting options. The first of which is a surface mount cup, followed by a flush mount cup, and then finally the tweeter post woofer mount. I'll explain this in more detail later when I show you guys how easy it is to convert between coaxial and component mode. Since you have two tweeters, you of course get two of each of those. Now a quick note on these tweeter mounting options, if you buy the tweeter set alone, then you get the flush mount and the surface mount cup, but the woofer post mount is not included. But it does come with the woofers if you buy those individually. Now there's some accessory bags here. In the first you'll find a bunch of mounting hardware for the woofers, and in this one, all of your different wire terminals along with some additional mounting hardware for the tweeters. Now I do want to point out something kind of cool about their packaging here. You'll notice these two spots here are currently empty. These spots are for the phase plugs that come out of the middle of the woofer. I'll show you guys these in more detail later, but pretty cool that they added those spots here. If you were running your speakers in coaxial mode, you could store these on your shelf for use later. Now underneath this, first we have our crossovers. We're gonna get more into the design details of each of these items later, but a quick side note, if you do buy the woofers by themselves, these are not included. If you do buy the tweeters alone though, high-pass filters are included. Back to this set though, we have these two crossovers. Next, let's take a look at one of the woofers, and you'll notice that on top here is an included woofer grill. Great for those applications where a woofer grill is needed. A quick side note though, a woofer grill is not included with the 5x7 set. A really nice JL Audio logo there on the grill. And here is that 6.5-inch woofer that's 165 millimeters for you metric folks. Now again, we're going to go into much more detail here shortly, but here are those two woofers. Finally, rounding out this set are the two 1-inch or 25mm silk dome tweeters. With the unboxing complete, let's talk specs. Now for all speaker sizes, including the tweeters themselves, the continuous power handling is rated at 75 watts RMS, with a recommended amplifier power range between 25 and 150 watts RMS. With all of the C3 drivers having an efficiency near 90 dB at 1 watt at 1 meter, these could definitely be used off head unit power. But to help these reach their full potential, I definitely recommend considering an aftermarket amplifier. All of the C3 drivers have a nominal impedance of 4 ohms, and with the woofer and tweeter combined, these have a system frequency response of around 48 Hz up to 25 kHz plus or minus 3 dB. Now getting into the engineering details here, let's first talk about the crossover. Real quick, just in case you're not familiar with what a passive crossover does, what this allows us to do is, let's say we have a full range of frequencies coming in from our source unit, so we have 20 Hz all the way up to 20 kilohertz. What this will do is it actually divides those frequencies and sends them individually to both the tweeter and the woofer. These terminals in the middle here are labeled W, so that's our woofer positive and negative, and then we also have our tweeter positive and negative. So basically we're dividing up the frequencies so that the lower ones go to the woofers and the higher frequencies go to the tweeters. The C3 crossovers are housed in JL Audio's standard size crossover case. Now I've mentioned this previously on the channel, but I really love that these are standard across JL Audio's product line, as it makes upgrades to other speaker models easy, as you don't need to relocate wiring or redo mounting holes. It's important to note though that although the case is the same, the inside board and components themselves are optimized for each different size component set. As an example, you can see that this is the C3-650XO, whereas the crossover for the 6-inch component set is labeled as the C3-600-XO. Doing a side-by-side comparison here, you can see that the internal components of the crossover are in fact different. On the 6.5-inch set, this two-way network is designed with a first-order low-pass filter and a second-order high-pass filter. These feature premium components, mylar capacitors, and segmented air core inductors. Now you'll notice that there is a lot of adjustment built into the crossover itself. 4 different options for tweeter attenuation and 3 for the upper mid-range presence. The advantage here is if you are running a system that doesn't have a digital signal processor, you do have some options here for system adjustability. As an example, in the vehicle, the tweeter position may need to be pretty close to your listening position, so you may want to dial it back a bit. You can perform these adjustments while the system is playing. You just remove this little jumper, and although you normally start at the reference position there, you could dial it back, and let's say in our case we want to go to -4 dB. We could test it out and see how it sounds. Same of course with the mid-range presence jumper. This allows us to optimize for our exact application. Now let's take a more in-depth look at the woofer. Again, this is the 6.5-inch woofer that we're using in our example here, and you can see that this has 8 different mounting holes, giving us some more mounting flexibility. On the 6-inch model, there are some additional mounting holes for direct bolt-in OEM applications for the Japanese vehicles that don't accept a full-size 6.5. The 5.25 has 4 mounting holes, and the 5x7 has the 6 OEM style mounting holes. Now let's take a look at the basket on the back side of the C3 woofers. These are made from a glass reinforced polymer. You've got a glossy chrome JL Audio logo there, along with the embossed model number. And back to the front, there is a rubber surround with a mineral-filled polypropylene cone. This cone material is common in JL Audio's other speaker lines, providing a light, stiff material optimal for the cone's design. In the middle of each of the woofers is this piece here that we discussed earlier. This is the phase plug. You leave this in place when running in component mode, but when you're running in coaxial mode, you will remove it by pressing in, doing a small counterclockwise turn, and then removing it. We're going to go more into detail on this in just a second. Inside each of the woofers is a beefy 1.2-inch voice coil, along with a Kapton former, a low-profile symmetrical roll spider, and ferrite magnet. Now, to keep playing clean, accurate sound even at higher output levels, these feature JL Audio's patented elevated frame cooling and a DMA optimized motor. Long story short, JL Audio has a ton of engineering into these drivers that results in reduced distortion, improved transient performance, and overall stellar sound quality. Finally, I want to point these out because these are unique. Take a look at the speaker terminals. When running in component mode, you obviously don't have a tweeter attached, so you wouldn't use those tweeter connections. You would only connect to the outside woofer connections. But when you do have the tweeter installed and you're running in coaxial mode, you obviously need a way to send signal to that tweeter, and that's done through those inside terminals there that are labeled tweeter. Speaking of which, now let's talk about the tweeter itself. All of the C3 component kits use this same 1-inch silk dome tweeter. Silk is a great material for a tweeter diaphragm as it is very lightweight yet has excellent damping properties, which reduces ringing and resonance issues in the tweeter's bandwidth of frequencies. People typically describe a silk dome tweeter as having more of a smooth and pleasant sound that isn't as bright as what aluminum dome tweeters sometimes do. Now inside, these use ferrofluid for cooling and damping, and these have a neodymium magnet. If we look at the side of these C3 tweeters, you can see this little channel that is part of that plastic housing. There's one of these on each side of the tweeter, and that little channel or groove allows for clearance of that tab right there, which allows these to mount in the different mounting options. As an example, let's say that we want to mount into this flush mount cup. We simply guide the wiring through these wiring channels, align the grooves with those tabs, press in on the tweeter, and do a slight turn. This locks the tweeter into place in whichever mounting solution you have chosen. In the case of the woofer mount post, we want to pass the wiring through the middle circle here, so it looks something like that. And we will again push the tweeter into the housing and turn it slightly. With the tweeter mounted in the woofer post, it is simple to convert these from components to coaxials by simply plugging in the wires and then twist locking the post in place. This simple installation gives us a ton of flexibility for our system design. So with that all said, what kind of performance can we expect out of these? Simply put, expect clean and powerful sound. In my experience, after using these on several projects, these provide substantial mid-bass and can really take a beating with long, loud listening sessions, all while not having harsh or overbearing highs. The tweeter's ability to be mounted in a variety of different ways is advantageous, but it also performs well off-axis. So you don't need to be ultra concerned with having the tweeter aimed directly at your listening position. The availability of every size woofer independently is an added plus, and in my experience, like all things JL Audio, you can expect reliable performance for years of listening enjoyment. Now, if you guys would like to learn more about the C3 convertible component or coaxial speaker lineup, check out those links down in the video description. Again, a big thank you to JL Audio for being a sponsor of our channel, helping make the videos possible, and a big thanks to you guys for tuning in and watching.